Welcome back to Perfect Pour. I'm your host and spirit medium, Terry Collins. My favorite part of the program, we get to talk taste. And with me to do so tonight is our director and producer, Jerry Donahue, and we're going to talk bargain bourbons. All right, so now we're going to move to Larceny, produced by Heaven Hill, their major distillery in Louisville, Kentucky.
Larceny is, I think, a fairly new label for Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill is not corporate owned; it's a family-owned company. As you said, they distill in Louisville. Mm-hmm. They bottle and age in Bardstown, okay.
Which is where the original distillery was until it burned down. So they built a larger complex in Louisville.
Now, the thing about Larceny is it is a weeder. It is a wheated bourbon. It does not have the rye content. Of course, any bourbon has to be at least 51% corn. What you do with the other 49% is up to you. Wheated bourbons use, besides corn, they use wheat and then often barley, I believe.
Malted barley to help the fermentation.
Barley, yeah. Yes. If you've never had a wheated bourbon, you may have, but it has a very different characteristic. It's less spicy because it doesn't have the rye content. It's a little softer. Some of them are a little sweeter. Kind of depends on which one.
Right, and that can be a key thing for entering into the upper level bourbons here. Is if you initially don't like that rye spiciness, a good way to get into it is to trying the wheats. And there aren't really that many of them out there, but it's a good way to get into different bourbons at the higher price point. And again, these are bargain bourbons, even though they are at a higher price point. They're still in the $20 to $30 range, quite affordable.
Maker's Mark is a popular brand of wheated bourbon.
Probably the most popular.
Yeah, but it's more expensive. And of course, you've got the giants like Pappy Van Winkle, which is a wheater, but is extremely expensive and not
very limited,
not accessible.
Yes.
Also, the Weller products, which are made by Buffalo Trace.
Are the Van Winkle products also Buffalo Trace?
Yes, they are.
The parent company is Sazerac out of New Orleans.
Yes.
That owns them. Yes.
If you ever can find a bottle of Weller 12. Pick it up. That is a really good weeder.
Good luck finding that.
Good luck. And last time I saw it, it was under $30. But that may be different next time I see it. So prices do tend to go up.
Popularity has its effects. Yes, it does. All right.
Nice color.
Now remember, we've added water to each one of these that we're trying. Color is beautiful.
It's got a good nose.
The nose is much tamer right away, and that's probably the effect of the wheat versus the rye that we saw or had in the Buffalo Trace. I get almost a mustiness to it, and I think when we originally tried this, the first time I had it, and I have to thank Jerry for introducing me to the wheated bourbons, it reminded me of old leather books.
Yes.
Certain types of old leather books.
Old leather Missalettes. It's definitely a softer nose.
It's a very warm and sort of comforting smell almost.
Now, do you get much of an alcohol nose in there?
I can tease a little out, but it's not as assertive, because usually the thing, as I mentioned before, that jumps out, especially from the overproof bourbons for me, is the alcohol, and I register that as sort of an ammonia smell, and it's much tamer in this wheated bourbon.
And the proof, this is 92 proof.
And right away, on the tip of my tongue, the taste is the spiciness isn't there like it was in the Buffalo Trace. It's very smooth. I get more of the burn towards the back of my throat with this. And that's something that I wouldn't have expected from the nose. The Buffalo Trace, the alcohol was there up front, so I'm expecting that spiciness. This is sort of the opposite. The nose kind of fools me, and I get some of the burn, not on the tip of my tongue, but towards the back of my throat.
And the same here. I get the burn. It kind of tastes like a young bourbon that hasn't really mellowed too much from the age and the wood. I get a bit of sweetness up front on the front of my tongue, but then the burn on the back. Soft, not spicy.
Very soft, very tame. It's not as full of a flavor as the Buffalo Trace. But again, the wheat is going to tamp all of that down and make it. Again, if you're just getting into these sorts of bourbons, this might be a good entry point, a wheated bourbon. Certainly smooth. I don't think it's as challenging, but there's a benefit to that as well. It's not going to scare you off, I don't think. It's not something you're going to try and be sworn off of bourbons forever. It's accessible, I believe, because of that.
I think it's accessible because the reason rye is used in bourbon is to give it that rye kick. The wheat adds very little taste to it, so you actually more of the corn tends to come out, and you get that. That's what gives it that softer taste with less heavy-handed characteristics in it. Still sweet, not as sweet as something like Maker's Mark, which is a very sweet.
It's interesting that to this point, neither of us has mentioned vanilla, which is usually the first thing that really jumps out at you. It's there.
It's there.
But the wheat changes the nature of it. It's very different.
I don't get a real long finish. Get some burn.
I'd say the finish is short. It's less than what I had for the Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
You do get the burn in the back.
I get a little bit of sweetness, but almost it's a little more burn.
Well, and everyone has different tastes in terms of how much water they might want to add to their bourbons as well. And that's one way to tame that burn. You can add. We just added a few drops really to this to just take a little bit of the edge off and open it up a little bit. And you can certainly add more, and it will bring down that burn as well.
So what would be your parting shot on this one?
Well, again, this is, I think this was in the low 20s, maybe $20 a bottle you can find this for. So the price point is great.
Yeah.
And you're getting a wheated bourbon, which is, there aren't a whole lot of them out there at any price range, really. I mean, you mentioned Makers, which is much more.
Probably, what, twice the price?
Yes, and it's very popular as well.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've had Maker, so I can't really compare to how it tastes compared to this. But this is, again, I think something it's valuable to try because it's the price point is good, and I think it's very accessible. And it's just a slightly different direction to most bourbons because it does have the wheat versus the rye.
Yeah, I'd say if you're looking for a wheater and for a little bit of money, this is, you don't have a lot of choices, so this is a good one to go with. The wheaters, I think, is good for people who are only starting on bourbon because it's not as spicy. It's a little bit more neutral. It's a little more easier on the palate.
Fair enough. And that is Larceny.
And that is Larceny.